Hello, welcome to World Tai Chi and Qigong Day. I'm here at Someday Farm in Killingworth, Connecticut. I'm Steve Watson. I'd like to introduce you to an exercise set for uh, any of the Tàijíquán arts, but Qigong and Tàijíquán certainly included. And this is called 30 spokes. So it's a 30 spokes drill or 30 spokes exercise. And in order to do that, we're going to be thinking about the cardinal directions. So for me, the cardinal direction west, I'm facing here. The camera for me is just about southwest, and south is over here. To help with that, I've kind of lined up a couple, hopefully fairly easy to see driveway markers to help us continue to recognize north, south, and east, west. I didn't lay them out with a compass, but it's just the idea. And what we're going to be doing is practicing with our feet, with each heel. So here's my feet, with each heel on the same line, and the rear foot open, maybe 30 degrees, 45 degrees, something like that, so that my forward foot is on the cardinal axis. My rear foot has just its heel on that axis, and otherwise it's open. That allows me a little bit more stability rather than the sort of tightrope standing. And so I'm going to stand next to this so I don't step on it, but hopefully as a reference that's there for us. So I'm going to have a foot forward and a foot to the rear, like so. I could have started either side, and I certainly could have started any direction. Right, so here I am going through the cardinal axis with either foot forward in each of the directions. And what I want to do is start by tuning into my center. So I can do that with my breath, and I can do it with my hands, and I can do it with some combination, so that I develop a sense of confidence in the footwork schematic anyway. So I'll face west here since that's closest to camera. And I'm going to just choose my right foot forward. Could have been either one. And I'm going to withdraw my right foot so it stays on the axis. And I'm going to turn my hip, and therefore my leg, and therefore my foot as a unit to face, I guess, kind of southwest here. Maybe slightly more like this. Then I'm going to shift my weight. I'm going to open my left hip, and therefore leg, and therefore foot, all as a unit. And they're facing south now. So I'm going to step towards the south. Once I'm confident and comfortable, I'm going to give my weight to that, place the knee over the ball of the foot, the way that we've learned to do in these arts, and then shift forward. Then I'm going to withdraw to the center with my leg, and therefore my foot. Then I'm going to turn the hip, leg, foot as a unit to face south. So now I'm facing south with both my feet together. At this point, you might have one foot slightly forward or one foot not quite able to square up, so you can readjust it, and we'll address that more as we go. So I'm going to shift my weight to the right, open the left, step out, in my case, to the southeast, and then come back to center and turn to match that southeast with both feet. Shift to the right leg, open the left, step to the east, shift to the east, shift back to center, and leg follows up. So now everything's facing east, like so. This again is my feet. Shift, open. Here I am northeast and back. I'll speed these up because I'm facing away from camera. And so I have 8 different directions that I step out to and shift my weight towards. And I can come back here. Certainly, this is a set that allows me to practice something an awful lot of times. I haven't used an awful lot of room. I can go 18 times around, 300 times around, twice around, and practice the set as well as the rest that goes with it. but it doesn't have an introductory element, doesn't have a salutary element, a commencement element. If I'd like to bring that sanctifying energy into the practice, I certainly can. So I can go through a practice that I've learned from one of my forms that matches my sensibility, and then go into the practice. And that sanctification practice, that um, coalescence of my consciousness that I bring to this practice, really allows my practice to breathe fully. I don't just mean in terms of cardiopulmonary, but just for it to live in its space. So I definitely recommend that, but I don't want to be teaching a commencement here today. Whatever feels right to you, whatever you've learned, your school salute, you can do that and then go into the practice. Certainly, I happen to have gone to my left. You can certainly circumambulate the center by turning rightward. That'll be just as fine, whatever works for you. So I'm going to practice that now. I think without talking. That's not what I do best. And I'll just go in the other direction so you can practice with me or watch or both or take notes. Back to the center. A couple things to consider here. If I bring my foot back and I overshoot my heel, the foot has a hard time turning to match in parallel when I get to this position or this or this. If I bring my foot back and I fall short when I turn, I end up having one foot forward when I'm in this position or etc. So I'm looking to get familiar with precisely where I place my heel when I return it, so it doesn't get in the way of my foot turning and staying next to my other foot, nor does it simply allow me to be in front even though I'm near. So that takes a little bit of practice to get that consistent so that it isn't a big concern for me and I'm staring at my feet and forgetting what else I'm doing. So we're going to go around again in a circle and give us a chance to work on that. Often that crops up at some point for somebody, even if they kind of don't have it as a problem in the beginning. Here and there it crops up and they're not sure why their feet won't close or are out of alignment. The other element here to consider is that when we shift back, we're shifting back to a feet together and a feet narrow sort of position. So when I do that, it's much harder to keep our balance when our feet are sort of occupying the same space than when our feet are in different spaces like we'd see in our usual practices. When we combine that with the fact that I'm shifting to the rear in order to do this, I shift to the rear and I return my foot. It's very easy for people to kind of have a little bit of this happen when they go back. So a couple elements here. One is that I shift first and then I withdraw the leg. Two, when I shift, my momentum doesn't take me. I'm not simply going to the rear, I'm going into this leg, which is to my rear. So I travel to the rear, but I'm settling into the earth. I don't have momentum taking me here. If I have too much momentum taking me here, I'm going to fall or need to step uh, to account for that, if not simply lean or tighten up. So slow and steady, That's what we're looking for in these arts. And then turn. And we might as well take that lesson to heart when we come forward. Slow and steady. Don't take our momentum into the practice and lean and hurry and stomp. But that's a kind of basic Tai Chi lesson. But when we go to the rear, we're much less practiced shifting to the rear. We're much less able to access our proprioception and our sort of our place in space when we step backwards. We combine that with an emphasis on the other energies in the practice and the fact that the feet come very close together. It can lead to a challenge for people. So let's recognize the challenge, let's meet that challenge, and let's practice with an eye toward management of that challenge. This is called 30 spokes exercise, 30 spokes set, 30 spokes drill. I usually refer to it as a drill. It's a conceptual drill into which we're going to practice a lot of different things. So let's try this with a little bit of energetic expression now, which is how this is normally done. Right now we're just focusing on the introduction of it and the foot placement. So what I want to do, we're going to come into Zanshuang, or embrace posture, hold the ball, perhaps you've called it. And what I want to do is have a sense of shift, open, step. And then when I shift forward, meaning to the boundary of the circle that I'm describing from the center point, I express. Maybe I hang out here for a little bit. Maybe it's a little bit more rhythmic as we've been practicing. I'll come back in to center, turn, shift, turn. So the turning leg doesn't have weight on it. Step. And when I shift, when I move towards the bounds of the circle I'm describing, I express. Return to center. This can help me have a sense of center in the center of the circle rather than heading backwards. So coming into center can really help with that. Maybe your middle center, maybe your upper center, maybe a combination works when you come back. So here, center, I'm coming into our lower center, something we usually called our dantian in these kind of classes. Now you may notice that I'm doing something that's similar to what you practice in your school. You have your own embrace posture or tree holding or stake standing practice. And if that's the case, you're probably looking at mine saying, well, that's wrong. He doesn't know that very simple thing that we teach to beginners. And that's okay. Everybody has their own way of doing these things. I'm not here teaching how to do Zanshuang, but I am offering it as a component of this drill, which allows us to practice a lot of different energies. So if your Zanshuang looks like this, you can practice that. If your Zanshuang looks like this, you can practice that, and we can all be doing it together. Maybe we are. If your Zanshuang looks like this, you can practice that. If your Zanshuang looks like this, you can practice that. If your Zanshuang looks like this, you can practice that. If yours looks like this, you can practice that, etc. I'm just doing mine to reference the idea. You can certainly take your understanding of the Jing, of the Qigong, of the practice of the Daoyin, and practice that within the foundation of this footwork sequence. Okay, so let's try this again. What I want to now notice, and I'm going to just go back to no hands so that we shift our focus, we don't get lost in the exciting stuff up here, is that when I turn here, do I want to step and blade to that step? Do I want to step but kind of keep my belly facing my rear leg point, the direction my rear leg points? And that might allow me to come forward and turn when I come to the forward position. Or perhaps I want to open this, and once I've opened, my torso turned with the leg, and I just step forward, face forward. So I'll do that kind of facing camera, I guess. So do I turn? How do I get this to the camera? If I do this, I'm just already at the camera, which is fine. Perhaps I'd like to do this, where I never came to the camera. Perhaps I'd like to do this, where I don't come to the camera until the end. Or perhaps I'd like to come to the camera and come away from the camera. So how we rotate the trunk can be described by the function of the jing that we're practicing, the energies that we're doing, and it can also just be part of your exploration. Like when we were doing Zhanchuan, it doesn't really much matter. Maybe I want to do it this way. Maybe I want to do it this way. Maybe I want to do it this way. This is a way I like to do it. Like so, same footwork drill here. So open, step here, and come back. So that little bit of rotation can really be up to you, part of your exploration. Perhaps the particular way that you express a particular energy, when you fit that into the 30 spokes drill, it may kind of answer for you which way you'd like to twist, right? So if you're doing slant flying, you might say, well, I really want to be closed when I shift forward so that I can open and express this way. That would make sense. If I did slant flying and I was already facing forward, this wouldn't feel like much of my body. So slant flying, I might really want to turn away and then open. So that would kind of make a good case for doing it that way, but you could certainly explore it another way. Okay, I'm enjoying the spot here that I'm making, the damp ground, the dark colored grass under the center of my circle. Okay, so we're going to try it again. Open. Single whip. Hold the ball. Pong. Single whip. Just enjoying the peepers and the sunset here. Usually we start to hear the geese about now. Good. Maybe Twice and go up on the other side. Go around the circle the other way. Which I think I won't bore you with, but just for fun, we could play with that. So we've certainly, most of us, been to a class at some point where the teacher looks at everybody in the class and then looks at you and says, you need to work on, slant flying or pong or whatever. And you maybe kind of put your hands in your pockets and, okay, I'll practice it more. Let's say, for example, the teacher says, I need you to work on hammer under elbow, right? Something like that. Here's what I need you to work on. And you say, well, okay, but I'm a busy person. I have 3 kids. I have a job, and my aunt just had surgery, and I have to help look after her. So I'm going to practice my form and really think about this. I'm a good student. I'm checking my notes. I'm really paying attention when I get to that. But in my form, I just do that one time. Maybe I do it 2 times in my form. And I practiced every day. So when I come back to class, I've now done it twice per form, once per day. I've done it, 12 or 14 times. Maybe doing this 12 or 14 times is not going to be quite enough iterations for you to really integrate the lessons or to reveal the reasons behind the errors, or perhaps even to remember what it is your teacher said you are supposed to do. And you simply can't do the form 5 times a day. You have responsibilities. You have your life. You're not your teacher who can do it 30 times a day. So having a footwork set like this can allow me to say, in a small amount of time, practice that movement. And maybe one time around the circle, I'm going to get 4 days worth of practice. Twice per form, once per day with the form is 4 days of practice. So besides packing in the practice of this particular thing or this challenge, which is nice, I can certainly give myself the same amount of time I take to do the form, let's say 20 minutes, and do 160 of these. And boy, that would, be the equivalent of 10 weeks of practice every day in 20 minutes. But more than just the kind of packing it in, what's really nice is that if I, for example, I'm working on some particular thing that I learned about this from my teacher to work on in my form, and we've probably all been here, I just remember it right after I do it. Like, oh, I was supposed to, and now I'm in the flow and I'm following my classmates, and or I kind of figured it out, and then I go through the whole rest of the form. When I finally get back to that move, it's been a few minutes. I've had a lot else on my mind. I'm working on other things, other places in the form. And so the feeling that I had when I had it wrong, or the feeling that I had when I had it right, or the clarity in my mind about, oh, that's what that lesson meant, might be lost to me when I encounter the move again. And so more than just I get to practice this an awful lot of times in a given amount of time. That's true. But each iteration comes right on the heels of the previous iteration. So whatever I was doing wrong, I'm very clear about because I just did it wrong 6 times in a row. Maybe this time I'll get it right. If I was finally getting something right and I have a real clear sense of a particular sensation, it's fresh in my mind as I go to do this one, right? I've certainly had the opportunity or the experience where I'm right near the end of the form and finally something is starting to click, that the words of my teacher are making sense, or that particular feeling I have, but the form's over. Doing something like this, if I get that feeling, I can just do a few more circuits and really live in that and integrate it and map it into my being. Similarly, I might need a little bit more time to chase that sensation or that feeling, and I can't quite do it in that short form I practice, that 18 move form or something. Whereas this, if I have a little bit of time, that's great. Another thing that happens is, for example, somebody will be doing something like repulse monkey, and they'll say, well, let me just do a few extra. Maybe I'll do a few extra wave hands like clouds until I know the form only has so many, but if I do a few extra, I'll start to really figure out that sensation or integrate that lesson or remember that problem or identify the root of the challenge I have. But I run out of room. So I'm just about to have that feeling, and then that's the coffee table. And I come back over here and try and recover it. Or obviously, wave hands like cloud, same thing. Now I'm out of room, I have to reset. So, what's nice about the 30 spokes exercise is that I'm not going to run out of room. If I can take one step in each direction, I can just go forever. And it's not particularly dizzy making. So that's a really nice piece for it. Although I will say that even if you don't have a full step in each direction, if, for example, I only have steps to the south, I can have a fan practice where I'm practicing in this fan, right? Or perhaps even just this pizza slice. And that's I don't use that portion of the circle if I have that much limited room. So this becomes a very Zoom friendly thing, a very simple thing to do, like in a closet or in your den or in a bathroom where, I can lock the door from the kids for a few minutes and get a little bit of practice. So it's a really nice opportunity for us to get enough practice to integrate our lessons, to chase down the source of our errors, to come into maybe a more meditative relationship to the form, because I'm not onto the next thing, and I'm not onto the next thing that has the problems that I'm trying to resolve with it. I'm just staying with the one thing for a little bit. I've just picked a few different things to do, but you can certainly pick whatever it is you want to do. Um, Next element to this I just want to address as we kind of think about wrapping up here is that quite often in the practice, what I'll do is I'll do a forward coming to the center of the circle and then a rearward energy here, a forward, in this case, shoulder stroke, and then a coming back to the circle jing, in this case, Lu Jin, so that I have a double expression, right? I have an expression forward and an expression to the rear, an expression forward and an expression to the rear, an expression forward and an expression to the rear. So initially we were just doing from the empty center out to the circumference of our circle, but we can certainly have expression there and here each time. So you can generally take whatever it is you need to work on, want to work on, feel like working on, are assigned as homework by your teacher, and figure out how you can make that fit in this footwork stepping. I've just kind of randomly done a few, but you can really, you can certainly work, pung, lu, ji, on, and have a couple back and forth, and then step and work on pung, lu, ji, and on. You can even do it with multiple steps in the same direction, pung, lu, ji, on, something like that, and on around the circle. So my guess is that that's going to be about my time. So I'm going to go around the circle once more. Invite you to join me doing whatever movement you'd like to do. Hopefully you've enjoyed a little bit of time out here on the farm. If you're so inclined, you can check out my Patreon page for hundreds of videos, short, medium, and long, on philosophy, healing, stretching, strength training, movement, form, skills, drills, and so forth. That's patreon.com/somedayfarm. Thank you all very much for joining us. Really appreciate you being here, and have a wonderful year of practice, and bring more friends with you to World Tai Chi Day next year. Thank you. All the love. Thank you, thank you. And thank you to Bill and Laddie, most especially.